Good evening all and welcome. Tonight I have a collection of creepy ghost and paranormal stories for you to enjoy. But before we continue, I'd like to wish a very happy birthday to War Goddess 9. I hope you've had an amazing day. And if you'd like your birthday shout out, be sure to follow the link in the description to Patreon to find out more. But for now, it's time to get comfortable and let the darkness take control. My parents have had paranormal experiences for many years, even before my siblings and I were born. At one point, my mom went through something terrifying. I was around 14 at the time. She used to wake up with scratches, bruises, bite marks, and objects thrown at her. It got so bad that the police once came because they thought my dad had hit her. But he never would. Ever. She was really sick, bedridden, constantly seeing doctors who couldn't find anything wrong. She has diabetes and epilepsy, but neither explained why she kept getting bruises or struggled to walk. Eventually, my parents invited a medium to the house. I remember that moment so clearly. He walked in, looked around, sat down, spoke to my mum and closed his eyes. As soon as he did, every light in the house flickered for a while. Then he told her that a dark entity had attached itself to her. He described it exactly as she'd always seen it. A tall dark figure, a man with a veil covering his face. Then, in 2012, my sister passed away. After that, the attacks mostly stopped. Strange things still happened now and then, but nothing as violent as before. My mum's health also took a better turn for the most part. She strongly believes my sister is now protecting her. When I was around 21, everyone in my house was asleep. I've always been a night owl. I enjoy how peaceful the world feels at night, as if time has paused, which gives me complete freedom. I was feeling very hungry, so I paused my video game and got up, when I suddenly got this eerie feeling. It's hard to describe specifically, but it just felt off. I decided to shrug it off, patted my cat, opened my bedroom door and stepped into the hallway. Our hallway was a straight path leading to a staircase at the end, which took you to the ground floor. Just days earlier, we had painted the stairs and walls white. They used to be plain old brown wood. And as I walked down the creaky stairs, I remember being irritated at myself for being so loud, as I really didn't want to wake anyone. Once I reached the ground floor, I opened the living room door. Our living room was fairly big. On the left, there was a door leading to the basement, straight ahead with a kitchen, garden door and bathroom. To the right, with a TV and couches, your standard family setup. I began to make myself a chicken sandwich, but I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling. All the lights were on, so I tried to ignore it. I put the chicken on a plate, grabbed it, and was about to head back upstairs when suddenly a feeling of fear hit me. I still get goosebumps every time I remember that moment. Panicked, I turned off the lights and shut the door, heart pounding for no reason that I could understand. That was when a scream broke through the silence. It was loud, just a woman's scream, almost like a wail. It was clear as day, as if she were right there in the living room. I ran up the stairs as fast as I could, completely terrified. The strange part will always be that no one else in the house heard it. Just me. I've tried to rationalize it. Maybe a pipe burst, maybe a neighbor screamed, but neither explanation makes sense considering how loud and close by it was. Something I've never mentioned before when telling this story was that 2 weeks later, my mum's aunt passed away from old age. Could it have been a sign? Something else? I have no idea. But that memory is burnt into my mind. and it still terrifies me to this day. My partner and I were together for 17 years. In 2016, we moved out to an acreage, which was his dream. Wide open space, animals. He absolutely thrived there. It brought him a kind of peace I hadn't seen him in before. But over time, something he'd been holding back, namely a long-suppressed drinking problem, began to creep back into his life. And once it took hold, it pulled him down hard and fast. He took his life in January 2020, and I can't put into words how broken I was because of it. There was no one around me except myself, and the absence of my partner was deafening. The days passed in a haze, and I couldn't feel anything except the space that he used to occupy. Then, at the end of March, something strange and oddly beautiful happened. A little black rabbit showed up at the property. Not a wild one passing through, this one stayed. It slept under my husband's truck, burrowed just beneath our bedroom window, and hopped around the place like it belonged there. It played with our dogs, hung around his horses, and was just there, always near me, and always near the things that he loved. I have a photo and video of him, this gentle, fearless little creature that seemed completely at ease with everyone and everything. Here's the part that still gives me goosebumps. Years ago, my husband had a spiritual reading from a native elder. He was told that his spirit animal was a rabbit. I didn't think much of it at the time, but after this, I don't know. I am not religious, but I do believe that the universe sends us things when we need them most. And I believe with everything in me, that was him, checking in on me, making sure the farm, the dogs and I were going to be okay. And you know what? He left in late July, just around the time I began to smile again. The tears weren't every day anymore. I'd started to feel the sun again, and after that I never saw the rabbit. It was the most peaceful, loving, and odd experience I've ever had, and I'm grateful for it every single day. About 15 years ago, my family bought a house from a woman who passed away the same day she signed the papers selling it to us. It was a strange coincidence, to say the least. She had 2 small dogs, small older pups. Rather than let them be sent off to a shelter, we agreed to keep them. They became part of the family, and honestly they adjusted better than we expected. Fast forward a few years. One night I wake up in bed, and I see someone in the room. There's a woman, tall and thin, wearing a long white dress. She looked almost translucent, glowing faintly in the dark. I couldn't move, but I wasn't afraid either. She just stood there at the end of my bed. It's hard to explain the details clearly. It felt more like a dream or a strong impression than a physical encounter, but I remember her looking at me and giving me a soft smile. Then she turned and left the room. I went back to sleep, unsettled but not frightened. The next morning, I woke up to find that one of the dogs, the smaller of the 2, had passed away during the night. No signs of pain, no struggle. They were simply gone. But I couldn't stop thinking about the woman in the white dress I'd seen. I'd never seen anything like her before and haven't since. And while I can't prove anything, deep down I believe it was the previous owner, the one who perished the same day she let go of the house. Maybe she came back to take her little dog home. I don't know why, but strange things have happened around me for as long as I can remember. The first one that really messes with me happened a few years back. I had this vivid, gut-wrenching dream that a friend of mine had passed away. I woke up shaken, and I couldn't shake the feeling for days. Then I got the news. She had taken her own life. The timing lined up exactly. Another time I was home alone, passed out on the couch. I wasn't fully asleep, just drifting, when out of nowhere, clear as day, a deep male voice shouted in my ear, "Hey!" I bolted upright and no one was there. A few hours later, I got a phone call that a male friend had also passed. But it started way before that. When I was around 6, I saw an old man standing in our kitchen holding hands with a little girl. I don't remember being scared. I just remember standing there staring at them, and they were staring right back. We just watched each other. And then, they were gone. Just like that. Of course, no one believed me, but the thing is, stuff like that kept happening. Dreams that came true, voices that warn me something bad's about to happen, and people or things that will show up when they shouldn't even exist. I don't claim to understand any of it. I don't call myself psychic or gifted or anything like that. But I do know that weird stuff tends to follow me a lot. When I was 7, my mum and I had just come cross-country to stay with my grandmother. She was a monster herself, but that's a different story. We ended up staying in her spare room, which she used as a third closet for all of her over-shopping. Clothes, jewelry boxes, old dolls. You get the idea. She was a hoarder. So every night, starting on the first night, I began to see a pair of what looked like glowing red eyes. I wasn't a stranger to seeing weird stuff, but these spooked me. At first, I tried to tell myself that they were my imagination or some impossible reflection in a pitch-dark room. But it happened every night, and they'd be coming from a different spot each night. At first, they'd stay in one spot all night, but after the first week, I began to actively watch them move around the room, always staring at me, never breaking my eye contact unless it dodged behind something, always silent, despite the mess. By week 3, I was terrified, as it had begun to inch closer to the bed at night, rather than around the perimeter of the room. I finally got the guts to wake my mum one night as it was approaching the bed again. As she woke, it retreated, but didn't disappear. My mum saw it after I woke her and explained. She froze. She eventually got up, turned on a light to investigate, but it was gone. But turned the lights off again, and by the time she's back in bed, they've appeared and are watching and darting again. We checked the room for days after to try and find a rational source of the two glowing eyes. We never could. After that, each night we'd huddle together and watch the thing dart around the room watching us. Eventually it got too much, and we had to move downstairs into the living room. Weird stuff happened down there too, but nothing ever like that. Back in 2010, I was in my first round of college and working the night shift at Taco Bell. My manager at the time and I became really good friends. We still are, actually. His truck had broken down, and since we are usually the ones closing together, I started giving him rides home after our shifts until he could get it fixed. One night, we were driving through the quiet suburban streets around 2 a.m. The roads were completely dead. No cars, no people, no anything. We had Coast to Coast AM on the radio listening to the usual strange and paranormal topics they're known for. It definitely helped set the mood. I had my high beams on since the streets were so dark. We were just cruising, half listening, half tired, when both of us suddenly looked up at the exact same time. Right at the edge of the headlights, just barely outside the full beams, was the unmistakable silhouette of a man. He was just standing there in the middle of the road, partially illuminated, but as he moved forwards into the light, he vanished. Instantly. There was no running or fading, he was simply gone. We both whipped our heads towards each other at the exact same moment. We both saw it. That confirmation between us made it even more chilling. There was no way to explain it as imagination or trick of the eyes, because we'd both witnessed it. I've had other paranormal experiences, some of them way weirder and spookier, but this was different. And it's stuck with me ever since. A few years ago, my wife's father passed away. His death hit her hard. They were extremely close, and even though he'd been sick, it still felt sudden. About 3 months after the funeral, something happened that neither of us can explain, and it still gives me chills when I think of it. It was around 3:30 in the morning when her cell phone started to ring. We were both asleep, and the sound jolted her awake. The number flashing on screen wasn't one she recognized, but it was from the same small town where she grew up, where her dad had spent most of his life. She answered it groggy and confused, and immediately I could tell something wasn't right. She sat there frozen, holding the phone to her ear. I could hear faint static from where I was lying, and there was something else, like a man's voice, distorted and broken, trying to push through the interference. It wasn't clear, but it sounded like someone struggling to say something. She later told me she thought it sounded like, "Help me," and then the line went dead. She tried to call the number back, but it had already been disconnected. Just a hollow, automated voice telling her the number was no longer in service. The next day, we were both still rattled, so we decided to look into the number, just to figure out where it had come from. What we found still haunts me. That phone number had been out of service for 26 years, not recently disconnected, not reassigned, but completely dead. And it gets wilder. The last time that number had been alive, it belonged to one of the restaurants her father had owned. The same restaurant he'd closed down exactly 26 years ago. It was like something or someone reached out from a time or place long gone. We still don't have an explanation, just the eerie voice and the static, a call from the past, and the lingering feeling that he was trying to reach out to her one last time. I've always lived in haunted houses since I was a child, but this Missouri house is completely different. Unlike my previous house in California, where I only heard creepy things like footsteps going up the stairs, or in the attic, or toys going off by themselves, voices, as well as seeing things move on their own. I've never seen a spirit until I moved into rural Missouri. It was the middle of the day. My best friend Jillian and I were hanging out inside my clubhouse my parents built for me in the backyard. There was a lower and upper deck. The lower deck was smaller and had wooden window shutters that you could open from the inside or outside. While we were inside the lower deck playing on our 3DSs, Jillian told me she had to run over to feed her cats real quick, as she lived next door. So basically, told her to do her thing and I'd be waiting inside the clubhouse. 3 minutes later, Jillian comes rushing over to the window shutters, opening them from the outside suddenly and frantically. I look over at her and ask what she was doing, but there was no response. She's just staring at me blankly. Not to mention her face was completely grey. I thought she smeared Halloween makeup on her face or something, so I told her to come inside. She then slams the shutters closed, and I saw through the cracks of the wood her run off behind the clubhouse without a word. I was confused. I wasn't sure if she was playing a prank on me or what, but it didn't raise any alarm for me at the time. I opened the front door to peek around where she went, but she's nowhere in sight. Then I look over to her house and see that she's exiting it. No grey face paint, just her normal-looking self. After seeing that, it shook me. I was too scared to be at my clubhouse anymore, and I ended up hanging out at her house instead for the rest of the day. I need some kind of explanation into what it was I saw. When I was 16, I experienced something that has stuck with me for life. Unlike the rest of my family, I had decided to become a Christian, get baptized, and begin attending church. One night, I was in my room before bed. I had just finished reading my Bible, and was saying a quiet prayer when the atmosphere suddenly changed. I turned my head slightly, and that's when I saw it. It wasn't just a shadow or some trick of my eyes. It looked like a gremlin. Small, maybe 3 or 4 feet tall, with greyish-green skin that seemed rough, almost scaly. Its limbs were thin but twisted, and its face was sharp and unnatural, like a caricature of a human face stretched into something cruel. The eyes glowed faintly, not with light exactly, but with this strange awareness, like it knew exactly what it was doing to me. It grinned, showing jagged teeth, and in a mocking voice it said, "You'll never matter. You're nothing." Then it gave this low, raspy laugh, almost like it was savoring my fear, before vanishing. I was frozen in place. A part of me thought, this looks ridiculous, like some kind of monster out of a horror movie, but why does it feel so real? The way the room felt, the weight of the presence and the laugh, it all absolutely terrified me. I kept it to myself for years. When I was in the army, I finally mentioned it to a couple of my buddies. One of them dismissed it right away, saying it sounded like a brief schizophrenic episode, just my brain messing with me. Maybe that's the easy answer, but it never felt like a hallucination to me. This happened about 4 years ago, and I still think about it more often than I'd like to admit. It started off pretty casually. I was up late one night just watching random paranormal videos on YouTube for fun. One of them was showcasing this ghost hunting app, you know the kind, the one that claims to detect spirits through your phone, highlight their shape, and even show you messages from the other side. I figured it was just a gimmick, probably a sponsor deal to make some cash off people who like spooky stuff. Out of pure curiosity, I downloaded the exact same app they were advertising. I installed it, opened it up, and pointed my phone around the room expecting absolutely nothing. But then it told me there was something in the closet. At first, the app just highlighted the area, but then it displayed the message, "Hi." Just that one word, like something was attempting to talk to me. Even then, I still thought it was fake, just part of the app's programming to freak people out, so I uninstalled it and brushed it off and went to bed. But that's when things got strange. A little while later, I started to feel like I was being watched. It wasn't just a creepy vibe, I felt it. My body was suddenly cold, like the warmth from under my blankets was being drained away. I didn't open my eyes, but I could sense something nearby. It was too close. What happened next was hard to explain. I didn't hear a voice, but it was like something spoke directly into my mind and told me not to take my feet out from under the blanket. I'm deaf, so this wasn't hearing, it was knowing. Like something was inside my head, warning me. But at the same time, my feet wanted to move, almost like something was pulling them. And the moment my feet slipped out from under the blanket, something grabbed them hard. I was yanked down, dragged across the bed, and panic shot through me, and I instinctively reached for something, anything around me. The only thing I got on my hands were a single Chinese chopstick. I gripped it like a weapon, ready to fight off whatever was there. I looked up, expecting someone, but the room was empty. Yet the feeling didn't dissipate. I knew it had tried to pull me towards the closet. That night changed how I see things. I realized you don't always need a Ouija board or some ancient ritual to invite something in. Perhaps just interacting with the idea of it is enough. Since then, I've sworn off everything related to the occult. If someone ever asks me to join in something like that, I'll politely say no and leave it there, because I've already seen how fast it can escalate. I don't usually talk about this because people either laugh or try to explain it away, but our house has always been peculiar. The previous owner actually died of a heart attack while mowing the lawn, and ever since we moved in, there's just been this lingering energy around. My mum, who's psychic, says he still visits sometimes, But strangely, every single thing I've ever experienced has happened in the hallway. The first time was years ago. I still remember it perfectly. I was standing in the kitchen watching TV. The hallway is just to my right, when something dark moved past the doorway. Out of the corner of my eye, it looked exactly like a cat walking down the hall. We had a black cat at the time, Brit, so I turned without even looking and said, "Brit," expecting her to come trotting in. But the second I turned my head, it was gone. The hallway was empty. The next few minutes were a sort of blur. I remember calling for my mum, my heart racing, and before I knew it, I was sitting on my bed crying while she tried to calm me down. She told me what I'd seen wasn't Brit, but was in fact a ghost cat, apparently the spirit of one that used to hang around this part of the house. Since then I've seen 2 more figures in the hallway, always from the corner of my eye, and always disappearing the instant I look. They still startle me, but not like the first time. Now when it happens I just say something like, "Hey, I think I just saw something again," and move on with my day. It's been years since the last one, but I still get that uneasy feeling when I walk through there at night. I also had an interesting glitch experience you might want to hear. The first one happened when I was a kid playing on the swings. I was doing that stupid thing where you jump out midair, you know, that cartoon moment where characters run off a cliff, hovers in midair, looks both ways, then falls. Yeah, that happened to me. I mistimed a jump, launched myself off the swing, and for a split second everything just slowed down. I swear I was suspended there in midair long enough to look both ways right before gravity kicked in and I hit the ground. It didn't feel like a blur. It felt slow, like time really paused. The second time was years later at the YMCA. My mum and I went swimming a lot, and I'd always leave my glasses in the locker. When I came back to grab them, I reached in and felt that static shock build-up you sometimes get. Except this time it was like the world froze for a moment. Everything around me felt distant, and it was as if I watched the shock travel through the glasses before it snapped me back into my body. Both moments couldn't have lasted more than a second or 2, but they felt stretched out. Super surreal. I don't know what to make of any of it, but between the hallway figures and those weird time slips, I've just accepted that sometimes strange things happen around me. I've had a couple of creepy experiences over the years, and I've been able to rationalize most of them, but I've never been able to come up with any explanation for this one. This was a few years back. I was on holiday down by the coast with my family. We were staying in a flat on the 3rd floor in this sort of resort-type place. Nothing struck me as off about it. It was a decent area, and everything was well maintained. For the first few days, everything was fine. Nothing was bothering me at all, until about the 4th night we were there. Important background information. In my country, we have this thing called load shedding, which is essentially scheduled power cuts to save on generation cost and whatnot. In the area we were in, it was scheduled from 2 to 6 AM every day, which hadn't been an issue so far. I'd been able to sleep through it. I struggled to fall asleep and need a fan or a TV on low volume, so usually I'd notice if the power had gone off because it would go quiet. The evening had started out pretty normal. We'd had dinner out on the balcony with some drinks and music, but for some reason my stepmom and her kids went to bed really early, saying they didn't want to sit outside anymore, which was odd because we all seemed to be having fun until that point. Shortly after, my dad decided to go to bed as well. I wanted to stay out and finish my drink because I wasn't tired yet, and there wasn't much else to do. So I sat by myself for an hour, with my back facing out towards the parking lot, which was well lit but had these really massive trees. All of a sudden, I felt that I needed to turn around and look at these trees, so I did. And I didn't see anything, but this sense of dread just shot through me. I immediately went inside and went to bed. Must have been around midnight at this point. I fell asleep and woke up just before the power went off. I woke up as the fan turned off and felt terrified, as it was completely unreasonable. My stepsister was sleeping in the same room, not a meter from me, and usually that's enough comfort for me to go back to sleep. But I couldn't shake this feeling. I tried putting the blanket over my head. I prayed, and I just got more and more anxious. Eventually I put my torch on my phone and it helped for a bit. But I was worried I'd wake her up, because she became restless after I switched it on. I felt bad, but nothing could have made me turn it off at that point. Some time went by, and I was reading on my phone with the torch still on, and I began to feel sleepy again. And then I heard this voice, distinctively male and absolutely not my dad, say, "You're not safe." I heard it right by my ear, and it was much louder than it should have been. I admit, I did freeze for a while and just pretended it didn't happen, but I couldn't take it. Something was telling me I needed to get out of this room. So I got up and ran to the bathroom, where I locked the door and sat facing it with my torch still on. Once again I was busy on my phone just trying to pass the time, and I started feeling okay, and then heard what sounded like footsteps up and down the passage. Slow at first, and then it got faster and faster, like someone barefoot was sprinting just outside the door. It got louder and louder, like it was coming towards me, and then the door flung open and hit the wall. This time I ran and wound up sitting in the corner of the lounge with my torch lighting up most of the room. Every time I looked down at my phone, everything around it went dark. But it was this moving, smoky sort of black. I don't know how to explain it. When I would look up, I could see the room perfectly. But when I looked down, I swear I could see a figure standing there and move all around the room. I just sat there pretending nothing was wrong and just praying for the sun to come up, which of course it eventually did. I went back to bed and it didn't happen again for the rest of the trip. No one else noticed a thing though, so yeah, I've got no idea what the hell that was about. I'm from Germany, and about 5 years ago my family and I lived in a house next to a church and a graveyard in a small village. I was around 13 years old, and my sister 18. Our house, an old parsonage, was split into two, with two entrances, one in the back that led to the garden and the graveyard, and a main entrance in the front. My sister and my rooms were on the side facing the garden. To get to the back entrance, you had to walk all the way to the front of the house and then go through a large event room, so the layout was sort of U-shaped. One day my parents went out of town for a wedding, leaving my sister and me alone for 3 days. One night around midnight, we both heard heavy footsteps like someone wearing boots coming from the event room right next to our side of the house. We were immediately freaked out because all the doors were supposed to be locked. We were both scared and thought perhaps it was a burglar or something. I gathered all the courage I had and went to the kitchen to grab a knife. Then I walked down the U-shaped hallway to get to the event room and unlocked the door to check. I turned on the lights and no one was there. I searched the entire house and checked every door to make sure it was locked. I didn't find anything. The rest of the night went on as normal, and eventually we went to sleep. But when I woke up in the morning and we went into the living room, there were leaves scattered all over the house. I don't really believe in ghosts or paranormal stuff, but that night will stay in my memory forever, and I can't explain when the leaves came from or whose footsteps we heard, because my sister and I were both in our rooms the entire time. One thing you need to know about me is that I am a complete skeptic of the paranormal, and yet I'm sharing this story with you now. Maria is my wife, and has a lifetime of seeing paranormal events. As a young child growing up in the suburbs of Chicago, her dad remodeled old houses. Apparently old houses in old cities have a lot of spooky things. Maria told me over 10 ghostly encounters that she had experienced, and some that she still experiences to this day. Easton is my 15-year-old son, not Maria's son by the way, different mum, and had recently developed a huge interest in the paranormal, and is into exploring it and learning more. William is my deceased father, who died almost a year ago. Sandy, my aunt and William's sister. She is mentally handicapped and lives in a nursing home. Alright, here's the story. My son Easton used to stay with my dad William at his house when he was younger, about once a week. My dad lived out in a rural farm town on 45 acres, and when my son was 7, maybe 8, he started complaining of hearing knocking at Grandpa's house. Now my dad has a sunroom built on the side of his house that has 4 large double glass sliding doors. This is where my son always complained of hearing the knocking. Dad would always get up to inspect and never find anything, but my son would never leave the room to check. Most of these instances happened around dusk or after sundown. Not that I think that's super important, but it's a detail nonetheless. This happened occasionally, and my son at the time was 8 to 10 years old. After leaving the house, my son didn't experience any more knocking, until this Monday just passed. My son was in the bathroom at his mother's house when he heard a knock on the bathroom window. He freaked out, pulled out his phone and recorded a clear-as-day knock on the bathroom window. Now this window is a small upper window of a bathroom with a curtain over it to prevent looking in. It also has a screen in the window. The sound is too loud to be a bug, but it could also be a bat or something along that nature if it were to fly directly into it. The fact that it happened multiple times leads me to believe it's not an animal. Now, me being the skeptic I am, I know my son's mother and stepfather assume it's actually them messing with him in an attempt to scare him. He, being a 15-year-old boy, likes to take long showers, and I know for a fact they hate it. My son assured me he had a visual on everyone in the house, and could be sure it wasn't anyone in the house playing a joke on him, but I remain skeptical. Fast forward to yesterday. I live around 50 miles away from my son in a completely different town. I live in a 5-year-old house that my wife had built. I leave for the gym around 5:40. My wife is home by herself in the living room watering her plants, and when she hears a loud bang on the living room sliding glass door, she's able to instantly turn her head to the left and see nothing there. Our French bulldog ran over to the slider and started looking out the window and let out a low guttural growl. My wife told me about the incident when I got back from the gym. I'm amused, but not really grasping the gravity of the situation. My wife wasn't freaked out, so I didn't think anything of it. I hop in the shower while she starts cooking, and while I'm in the shower, the French bulldog goes back into the living room slider and barks again. My wife calls him over. She was just with her at her feet while she's cooking, and the bulldog doesn't even respond. Despite multiple calls, the bulldog refuses to come. Eventually he comes, and my wife just chalks it up to him being paranoid from the knock earlier. My son, Maria and I are in a group chat. We know my son is in a taekwondo class until 9, and we text him at 9 and talk to him about how my wife has also heard a knock that's strange. I joke that it could be my dad, but I say it's really strange that he hasn't made himself known to me. I mean, after all, I'm his son, and he's going to everyone but me. Well, here's the part that still has me bewildered and honestly a little freaked out. My wife and I go to bed, and that's when I wake at 3:48 a.m. to an extremely loud bang on our bedroom sliding glass door. I immediately grab my phone and message my wife. I can't believe you didn't hear that loud bang. I also take time to message my son, saying I just heard the bang and can't believe it. Now I have 2 dogs who are sleeping in the room with us. They're both freaking out. One jumped up on the side of the bed, panting, and my wife sees the glow of my phone and rolls over. And I say, "Do you hear that?" And she said, "Yeah." But I thought it was one of the dogs. Now this is an important context I forgot to mention earlier. Our sliding glass doors are hurricane impact sliding glass doors. They're thick and heavy, and I swear they're twice as thick as a windshield of a car. The sound we heard is something I've never heard them make. I've heard people walk into them, I've heard people knock on them. They always give a dull, bassy thud, but this was a loud bang. And also the master bedroom slider and the living room slider are both connected to a completely screened-in back porch. There are also cameras out there. Unfortunately not on the porch, but the entire backyard is visible, so I could see someone coming if it were the case. As I'm lying in bed terrified, my wife, cool as a cucumber, says, "Is that really the first weird experience of your life?" rolls over and is back asleep. My heart continues to pound for the next 20 minutes. My wife gets up at 5:15 ready for work, and I fall asleep once she wakes. I sleep until 6:45 when my alarm goes off and nothing else happens. Tying this all together, Dad was the primary caregiver of Auntie Sandy. When his mother ended up in a nursing home around 87, he took care of her until he couldn't anymore and ended up in a nursing home himself. The same one as Sandy, in fact. I have since become Sandy's primary caregiver, healthcare surrogate, an IRS rep payee. I hadn't gone by to see Sandy in at least a year at this point. My dad was hospitalized around this time last year and quickly went downhill and left this life late the next month. I didn't take Sandy to his funeral because she's wheelchair bound and I didn't want to depress her with the situation. It occurred to me that by ignoring her, she doesn't even know of her brother's death. So that led me to believe this. My father knocked on my son's door. He knocked on his door because he knew he would pick up on it. He knew my wife would too, which is why he knocked for her. I'm not sure why, maybe to solidify the point. His final knock was for me, especially since I had said it was weird how I hadn't heard from him. I think he wants me to go see Aunt Sandy again. It could just be me coping and hoping that this is an explanation to all of this. I came home today and chilled on the couch in the living room facing both sliders. I'm fully expected to hear something, but nothing happened. But there's always tonight. Another note I want to make here is when I got home I inspected both sliding glass doors from the exterior porch side. Due to my amazing lack of cleaning both sliders, they're covered in a layer of dirt and dust, but there are no physical disturbances anywhere on the door. When I woke up this morning, I went and knocked on the sliding glass door to see how hard it must have been hit to make the noise. Nothing was even close, until I literally hit it so hard, I almost bruised my knuckles. I live in a brand new home, built 2 years ago. It always had a normal smell that was pleasant to come home to every day. Recently, though, I've had a disgusting, sickening, sour odor in the house. I've had pest control come out to plug up any entry sites for rodents, and they also placed poison in my attic, which I've recently found out is very inhumane. I thought it would be a quick death, better than mousetraps, but I guess not. I have also had supernatural activity in the house. First, is that even possible in a new home? I've heard it said that it could be on the land on which it's built, and after living here over a year, my cats suddenly began not wanting to go to bed at night. They're 16 today, actually, and after that length of time, you know your cats. I gently asked them, what is it? And not long after, I noticed that one of my security cameras caught a light turning on and off repeatedly in their room. I had their lights turned on in the morning, some of which are decorative and never used, and I awoke to find one of my barely ever used TVs turned on, my own bedside lamp in the morning, websites on my phone that I didn't look up, and finally my air conditioning thermostat turned from cold to the heat setting and a balmy 76. Not so pleasant in summer. Since all of this started, I set up a portable camera in my cat's room. I can clearly see orbs on my footage in the mornings, which aren't dust. They fly around the room, and enter/exit the room through a specific window in groups. And get this, there are lights on the outside of that window, outdoors. I have stills of light beaming down in the dead of night onto my pitch black forest yard and a patch of small lawn. So now I'm thinking, okay, maybe things here were haunted by a spirit, but who knows what now? All of this activity occurs at night and exclusively between 3 and 5 a.m. I've respectfully asked them if they would please move on, because while I was initially intrigued, it is now affecting my quality of life. Regarding the sickening odor, how do I know if it's the ghost or dead rodents? I've ordered some white sage to see if it helps with the haunting. Other than burning the sage and moving room to room with it, do I need to ask them to leave? Any advice here would be greatly appreciated. This started in 2021, when my mum and I went to New Orleans for a vacation. I'm totally willing to accept it didn't have to come from there, but the whole city felt wrong, and everything started right after. My mum has always been interested in the paranormal, so she took me along to a bunch of attractions like the voodoo shops and such. The one place that we went to that stands out to me was the Museum of Death. It was there that I got violently ill, throwing up ill. The entire room was spinning, and to anyone who hasn't been, the first half of the museum is pretty cool and informative, revolving around death. Near the back, though, it turns into more of a serial killer museum, which I didn't know about before we went. Afterwards, on the walk back, I couldn't shake the feeling that something else was around me. It felt physical. You know the feeling when someone is just about to touch you, when your skin can sense their presence but not the actual touch yet? It was like that. The rest of the trip was riddled with misfortune. Our hotel door kept opening while we were trying to sleep. I lost a good amount of my favorite art supplies. We lost our credit cards, only for them to reappear after the trip. We even ran into a 3-way homicide scene on our way back to our city. Not pass it. We were at the scene immediately after it happened, at another hotel completely by accident. My mum swore something had hitched a ride with us. I don't believe in the paranormal the same way she does. I don't think ghosts are real in the way lots of people imagine. But I'm sure weird things can and do happen sometimes. The whole way back she was talking to this thing. She named it and said it could ride with us on the way back as long as it left before we got home. So when we finally got back to our city and settled in for the night, I stay up late to play video games, and at around 3 a.m. I get up to use the bathroom. For context, my bedroom opens straight into a hallway facing directly into the living room, where my mum was sleeping on a fold-out couch. To my right, immediately next to my room, is the bathroom. It's dark because it's 3 a.m., with only my TV casting light from my room, the bathroom nightlight, and the moon coming in through the windows above my mum's bed. Before I turn towards the bathroom, I notice she's staring at the fireplace from the couch. She's hunched over. Her hair is insane, but I can still tell it's her by her clothes. I whisper yell to her a few times until she turns her head towards me, but she doesn't move. Right after, the bathroom door to my right opens, and my mum is standing there saying something like, "What do you need? I'm here." I look back and the figure on the couch is gone. Cue me freaking out and trying to explain to her what I saw. Ever since then, my mum has shown up sometimes, calling for me and knocking on my door. At first, it was easy to explain it away as a mental health thing, until other people started seeing it too. There have been times when I'm chatting with friends either online or in person, and we hear my mum when she's not there. An old friend of mine never liked my door to be open when we do video calls. She said that she could see something that almost looked like my mother, but not quite, moving outside my hall. The wildest it got was when we had to move. It was a 2-story house, and my mum would call for me at the bottom of the stairs all night, even waking my actual mum sometimes, although she didn't remember exactly why she had woken up, just that she heard a weird noise at the same time. It never called me by my name though. It usually said Buggy, the nickname my mum uses for me. I guess that makes sense, since my mother doesn't really call me by my real name much. We've since moved again and nothing's happened yet, but it's been about 2 years. What do you all make of this? Has this kind of stuff happened to any of you guys? I don't really know why, it just stopped. I found it freaky. I'm a 19-year-old female, and I live in the Asheville area, which is a very spiritual place. Recently, I've had a lot of unexpected deaths happen, all within the same week. My mum passed away on Sunday. My grandparents' dog passed away yesterday, and one of my pet rats was eaten by the other yesterday as well. Their care was perfect. I fed them 3 times a day. There was constantly food in their cage, and they had a variety of stuff. And yet, one chose violence. Before all of this happened, my best friend and I would go for walks at night. One night, we went on some train tracks and walked for about 15 minutes. That's when I saw a dark figure in front of us about 50 feet away, but assumed it was the lighting, or my brain trying to freak me out. We neared a fence that had a gap underneath it, and when I looked back I saw the dark figure again about 7 feet tall. So we went underneath the fence to get off the tracks. We had an uncomfortable experience a few days before on the same tracks as well, but thought again it was just us being cautious. The first time we left the train tracks, we were walking home and my best friend kept hearing something running up behind her, so we ran home. A few days later after that, we decided not to go on the train tracks again because we felt 2 different entities there. According to my best friend, one was demonic and looked goat-like. That's the one she saw, and I saw the 7-foot-tall one, but I don't think it's demonic. Anyway, we went to a creek near us about 2 days later that night. We had a really bad feeling about going down there, but went anyway. As we were leaving, we started speed walking home. She had to stop and tie her shoe, and she saw something behind her. Whatever it was followed us inside our apartment and is staying in my bathroom. I'm absolutely terrified of it, and it knows that. I can't maintain my protective bubble the way I usually can because I'm so drained with everything that's been happening. I lay down last night and had a vision about it trying to possess me in our laundry room, but I didn't let it. I remember waking up with the urge to walk into the bathroom, but I didn't. Afterwards, my friend sprinkled Florida water everywhere in my room, including my bathroom, put protective sigils up everywhere and burnt rosemary. However, whatever it is still here. While she was doing all of this, she heard growling from the bathroom. I just don't know what to do or how to make it leave. I'd appreciate any and all advice. Hey guys, it's Mort here, and thank you so much for listening. I hope that you have enjoyed tonight's collection of scary stories. If of course you did, you can let me know down below. It really does mean an awful lot to me, so thank you. If you didn't check out yesterday's video on deep sea, ocean, deep water kind of stories, I do say so myself, they're pretty good, and I'd appreciate if you would check that out too. I'd like to give a final thank you to my members and patrons whose names can be seen on screen, and if you would like to follow me over to Patreon for some cool exclusive stories, free all this week for anyone who'd like to listen, go ahead and check it out. But that's it from me, stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next one. Good night.